And again, I welcome all of you, all my dear friends. Many of you come through the world, I'll call it, of releasing. And some of you maybe have never learned releasing per se, but you have gotten here through some other means. It doesn't really matter what path you've chosen or what process you use. It's truth is truth. And so if you're here, you're in the right place, and it's the right time for you to be here. Um, so my intention for this, for forming this group and for coming together, is to create a community, a space where we can support each other in the realization of our own true nature, of that which already is. And I find in the course of my life and my journey that, being with and sharing with like-minded people supports. It helps because left by ourselves, our own mind has its own way of protecting and preserving its beliefs and its story and its everything. So it's nice to get those other perspectives. And as a simple example of that, I did a call a couple of days ago, similar call to this. I say similar, I had the same outline, but every call is different. And then last night, I got a beautiful note from my dear friend, Mike Klein, who's on the call, and he shared some perspectives with me. And I said, aha, that's beautiful. Thank you, my friend. And Michael and I have had, as he reminded me last night, lifetimes of support for each other in this work. So, my point is that, being in community allows us to not only to see what we're doing and where we are from other perspectives. And for me, that's always helped on my journey. So what I'd like to do, here's how I'd like to use our time together. I want to share my experience with you. This is how it's occurred to me. Here's what's happened for me. And then have a conversation around that, answer any questions, have a discussion. And then after that, I'd like to spend a few minutes taking you through a simple, what I like to call a contemplation. I'll just share some things for you to reflect on. That's all. Um, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's next in the community, what I envision, and it really is a collective. So, I'd love input and suggestions and ideas on that. So with that, as I share my own experience, um, and by no means do I suggest that my experience should be your experience. The beauty of this, if I could call it a process or a journey, all words for me fall short, because truth is what we experience when we're experiencing it, and it's in the silence, it's in the being. So, but it has to be expressed in words for us to communicate. So we do the best we can with words. But each person's awakening to the truth of who we are is its own unique journey. Just as we are unique individuals, our awakening process is very different. What I suggest is, so the best my words can do, or I think any words can do, is point to something. And it is up to you to hear that pointing, to follow it, to explore and see what does that mean to you within yourself. Because unless you used to say this, only the truth that you know is the truth that serves you. If you believe something, it can serve to a point where if I believe it, it means maybe I'll take it for testing or for examination, which is good. But someone else's truth, someone else's seeing is not your seeing. You need to see yourself for yourself. And so the suggestion I have as we have this conversation today is to forget everything you know. Forget everything you know about releasing and freedom and beingness and the mind and blah, blah, blah. Because everything you know is stored in the mind. So we don't need that. So just let it be empty and hear what is being shared as if it's the first time you're ever hearing it. Just let it in, brand new, constantly let it be new. So anyway, here's what my experience has been. Many, many years ago, 1980 to be exact, January, like so many of you, like all of you actually, I turned to releasing. Life was okay, life was good. Some things were going well, some things not going well, but I was being tossed about in life as we all are. And I learned releasing and very quickly started to experience, wow, this is really awesome. Like I let go, and all of a sudden little freer, a little lighter. This is a really beautiful journey. So I kept doing it, and fortunately, got to know Lester and see him frequently as his accountant. So that gave me a little bit of extra time with Lester, and it was such a blessing. Over time, my progress with the releasing, there were two things happening. There was great progress with releasing. Freer, lighter programs were being let go of. I was having more success and ease in life. So things were beautiful. And yet over time, and I'm talking about over the years, it also was true that I'd get pulled back into the show, pulled back into the drama, pulled back into the turbulation of life. So it was a lot of back and forth. And after a while, and things got a little crazy with Sedona Institute and other, things, lawsuits and things like that. Mike's laughing because he lived through it. Anybody who lived through it knows what happened. But I began to wonder, like, it seemed like my progress was just not moved. I wasn't moving much with the releasing. So I started looking at other teachings, other teachers, and I discovered this thing called non-dual teaching, Advaita. You've probably all heard of it. And I went and I found some teachers that I really resonated with. And um, it was beautiful. It was really beautiful for me. And I could see in it how much of what Lester taught was there. There was no difference. There was no conflict at all with what I was seeing and hearing and feeling from what Lester taught. In fact, Lester pointed us to Ramana Maharshi, one of the people he spoke of frequently. And Ramana Maharshi was non-duality man, person, being, I should say. And one of the things I discovered that became very clear to me, that as long as I believed myself to be this separate, finite being seeking to awaken, that was actually an obstacle to recognizing my true nature. It was believing myself to be the seeker that became the obstacle. So for me, as people may often describe, there was no grand awakening. There was no single event or single thing that happened like, oh my God, I fell into eternity. I see it all. I see the truth. I completely disappeared. I've had countless bits of that, pieces of that, falling away of that, feeling the beautiful joy and grace of being, and then back into life, back into life. And then sitting and being again and going into the beauty of being. So for me, it was a lot of back and forth, but it was again and again and again. But every time it felt more wonderful. And what I noticed over time was that getting lost, I'll call it getting lost in the world of experience, became much less frequent. The duration of it was much less, and it was much lighter. And the time of sitting in, which is kind of a funny thing because there's really no one to sit, but just the time of being, if that makes sense, um, was easier to drop into, easier to find, easier to remain as. And then there was another shift, and again, gradual over time. No fireworks for me, which I liked. I didn't want fireworks. I wanted something permanent and lasting. Not that fireworks wouldn't be, but it was just a different experience for me. But over time, I noticed that even then, when I was getting caught up in the day-to-day turbulence of life and believing myself to be this limited self with these issues and problems, the sense of being, the sense of peace was shining through all of that. And it was not really strong, but I never lost sight of it. And that was really, really beautiful. And we've all had these experiences. Every one of you has experienced your own being. Whether you recognized it for that or not, I don't know. But we've all had those many moments of joy and peace and beauty and quiet. And that's just us feeling our own being. It's just nothing more than that. That's what joy is. That's what happiness is. That's what peace is. It's just our own being. So over time, I came to see that all experiences, all feelings, all perceptions arise in and move about in this, what I would call open space of awareness that we are. Everything takes place within awareness. So things seem to arise, they seem to move about, they seem to resolve back into it. And I realized that the only element of experience in my entire life that never, ever changed, never came and went, was the knowing of experience, the knowing of whatever was arising in that space. But what arose in this space always changed. When I was a 5-year-old boy, I had feelings and thoughts and living a life of a 5-year-old boy, child. And when I got older, I had the feelings and perceptions and identification of a young man, and then a middle-aged man, and now a gray-haired guy. And those perceptions, they come and they go and they change. But if truth is truth, then truth has to be unchanging. And I recognize that the unchanging truth of who I am was the knowing, just pure knowing. That's it. And I realized, what else could it be? Because anything else, anything I've ever let go of, and you've had the same experience if you look at it, anything you've ever released, did you ever release something and feel there was less of you, or there was a piece of you missing? Maybe a burden was lifted, maybe a weight or a pain was lifted, but did you ever feel you, who you are, was now missing? Or do you feel, as you're releasing, letting go, or whatever practice you follow, that you are you, whatever that you is, are more present, more whole, more complete? You didn't become more complete. You just stopped believing you were not. You just let go of what was in the way of causing you to believe otherwise. I also got to see that what was for so long, feelings that would arise, wants that would arise, experiences felt like something that was in my presence in this space of awareness, and that I needed to get rid of them. And so I began to ask, well, what are they actually made of? What are these thoughts and feelings and perceptions? Where do they come from? What are they? And upon reflection, I came to see that they weren't made of anything. And they had no existence apart from the knowing of them. They existed when I perceived them. They were quite real. If I was upset or angry or whatever the emotion was, it was real. I was feeling it. There was the knowing of it. But other than the knowing of it, it wasn't like sitting on a shelf somewhere, came into my knowing, I released it away and it went back to the shelf. It didn't exist. None of that exists, except as it may arise in the moment. So I said, what's it made of? And I looked at it and I realized it's not made of anything. It's consciousness. It's knowing in motion. There's this, again, such a lack of words, but there's knowingness is a stillness. Beingness is still. And beingness is also movement. And it is the movement of consciousness that creates the sense of there's something there. There's something we feel, we perceive it in the body. And so we feel it, but what we're feeling is just a movement of consciousness. And so that helped me just let things just resolve and dissolve. And I realized I don't have to do anything with what arises. I don't have to release something. There's not something there that doesn't belong there. It's just consciousness moving. What needs to be removed is the belief that makes it real, that the belief that, as I'm sitting here, we all many times had this experience of, I am this separate person. I am this body, this mind, this head, this character living out this life. That's me. That's what I am. But all of that is perceived. For you to even say it, to feel it, to say it, to think it, it is perceived by you. It is known by you. And anything that is perceived is not you. It's just the current perception of the moment. Now, clearly, it's an ongoing habit in our lives to continue to believe ourselves to be this appearance of body, mind, this perception that arises. We believe ourselves to be that, sure. That's really where we get stuck. It's not in the experience of it, because if we just allowed the experience to be, it would naturally dissolve. But because we believe in it, we hold it. It's like we love this idea of who we are, even though we might hate it or dislike parts of it. And so we hold on to it thinking that without this, I will disappear. And the mind will tell us that without this separate being, you're gone. You don't exist. And the mind, when it says that, is completely lying. The mind's conditioning, its core program, and this is all from Lester, is wanting to survive. And wanting to survive means I need to survive as this separate being that I believe that I am. And so the mind will do everything to protect itself from you realizing, from you knowing the truth that who you think you are is just, it's an idea. It's a belief. It's a perception that we believe in. And so it can sustain itself. And so in a way, mind comes to love the process of releasing because there's this separate finite being working to be free, working and making progress and getting freer and lighter and having great gains and great things are happening. But it just perpetuates the belief that I am this separate being. So I just invite you as I share this. This is what my experience has been. It's ongoing. There are still times when I'll get pulled back into the day-to-day, but not often and not for long and not very deeply. But I don't care because I know in an instant I can just take that focus. What is it that shift? It's awareness. It's what are we putting our attention on? To me, attention is where you're focusing your awareness. What are you putting it on? And so the beauty and joy of releasing can also become a trap at a certain point. And Lester said, at some point, you must let go of the releasing. And I still release. I want to talk about how I release in a moment. But it becomes a trap because as long as we believe ourselves to be that finite being, we remain as that. We're keeping ourselves limited. We're working on the feelings when all we have to do, and this is what releasing is for me now. And again, I'm just sharing my experience. I'm not saying it's what yours should be or what you should do. I'm just sharing for you to take and look and examine. Releasing is a beautiful gift. Releasing is not the questions. The questions can facilitate releasing, but releasing is one of the things that keeps us stuck in habit patterns in life, habits of being or thinking or behaving, are these what I call contractions of energy. There's energy in us that's stored in some way, or tendencies they can be called. And so when these tendencies run, when they're activated by being in the world, we feel things, we feel the wants and we feel feelings and we have experiences. And in the past with releasing, like I've said, we go to work on it, we get rid of it, which is very, very valid. But then we get to a point where we've emptied that. And now the simplest way to release is to not release at all, but to allow releasing to happen spontaneously on its own. If what arises is nothing more than a perception, a movement of consciousness, if we do nothing but remain still and allow whatever's arising, give it our full attention, our full awareness, stand face to face with it. Don't turn from it. Don't ignore it. Certainly don't resist it. Just welcome it into the moment because it's already there. If we just allow that, everything just dissolves on its own because that's what it wants to do. The contracted, seemingly separate self wants to be free. The only way it's not free is if we keep it contracted and we resist what is. But if we drop the resistance to everything and allow whatever experience is arising to simply arise, we notice that the being that we are, the awareness that we are, those are all different words for the same thing, is never, ever touched by what arises. The most horrible things we've gone through, the most beautiful things we've gone through, remains untouched. Our being remains untouched. And we are always that. We just look away from it and believe ourselves to be the commotion in the moment. So what this is really about, very simply, is directing our attention from that movement of the world inward to recognizing the beautiful, ever-present joy of our own being. So yeah, that's it. I mean, for me, it's been, and it continues to be, an ongoing process of great joy. And I find in the mornings when I take the time to just sit and allow whatever's moving, whatever's gone on, maybe dreams or whatever happened during the night, to just be still and allow whatever's there to clear itself out. It's like, let beingness do the work. I've worked hard enough. I was a master of struggle for most of my life, a good part of my life. So I can struggle. I'm pretty good at it. But yeah, you know why? And now beingness takes over. And beingness wants our freedom more than anything. We just have to let it. So I find when I sit in the morning and I establish that just bathe in the beauty of just being, and whatever wants to come up. Anybody want to get out of here? And stuff comes up and I'll feel stuff. Oh yeah, that's going on. And sometimes I'll notice an initial tendency to resist a little bit. And I'll go, I don't need to do that. Just let it be, let it be, let it be. And then with the letting it all be, you see that there's nothing behind it. There's nothing there. It's just movement. And then it goes, shh. So, and then I get into my day, and sometimes in my day, things happen and you get pulled in a little bit, but there's always that foundation. And then several times during the day, I'll just sit and remind myself. My son, Jesse, gave me this little bracelet he made out of, I think it's mala beads that he found in Phoenix. And it's things like that for me are just reminders like, yes, just remember who you are. And like I said, it gets easier and easier and easier. So that's what I wanted to share. That's just what I wanted to share with you guys. So I'm open to questions, conversations, sharings. I'd love to hear your experience as well. So you should be able to unmute your own microphone if you want to speak, and you can just speak up.
Rick, hi,
Hi.
Shai. I wrote.
Shai. Yes, can you hear me, Shai?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
So I wrote a question on the forum, on the on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
And you told me to bring up the question here on the call.
Yes.
So I'm just going to read what I wrote.
Up a bit.
So yeah, so I wrote, hi, Rick. So from what I understood, there is awareness or knowingness, just different names for the same thing, our true nature. Then there is the person we think we are, the body-mind entity. Now, the person, body-mind entity, feels separate from everything and everyone, and therefore it wants control and approval so that it can feel safe. Then the person goes to release the three wants, but if we don't recognize that our true nature is awareness or knowingness, then we won't go free because the person, body-mind entity, can never go free. Okay, that was the question.
Mm-hmm. What I love about the question, Shai and I have had a number of conversations over the last few years, and I just always love the clarity of your questions, Shai. It shows me that it demonstrates that you've really thought about it and you've explored it, and now you're down to this wanting to understand something that seems to be like at the crux of things in some way. So I really want to acknowledge that. And you're absolutely right. This body mind, it has, when we believe ourselves to be this separate person, and again, I will say this 100 times, there's a lot of evidence that would seem to indicate that we are indeed separate people, separate beings, separate from the oneness. There's evidence, experiential evidence to support that. It just turns out upon closer examination that it's not true, that it's just a belief. But as long as we believe ourselves to be that, then we suffer from our own projections. We suffer from the projections of that body mind. And so we release to undo that suffering. We release the wanting approval, the wanting control, so that that body mind can relax. And that's a beautiful thing. What I'm suggesting here now is that person that you believe yourself to be, that person who's been on this journey of releasing and awakening and whatever else your life has brought to you, that person needs to be released.
How?
Yeah. You see, and in that moment of hearing that, you did it.
Uh, did I?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, okay, I'll have to sit with it for a little bit.
Yeah, let it be easy, my friend. And one of the things that happened for me, which was such a joy, the first time I really felt that sense of my personhood lift. Like, yeah, I'm really not that guy. I'm just not. I felt such relief. I felt two things. I felt huge relief, like, wow, thank God. Don't get me wrong, he was a nice guy, but man, he just like was never happy, never satisfied. One thing worked, another thing didn't. And I was kind of playing with that idea a little bit, but the reality of it was that when that belief, when that person that we believe we are, when we recognize that that's just a perception that is released, that can be, and who releases it? Not the person. Awareness itself just sees itself as awareness. Um, there's a lot of burden, a lot of that was attached to that person goes with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you said, Rick, nowadays when you release, you just watch what's coming and not resist it. That's how
Yeah.
you today.
In fact, a little bit, and if in a little while after we have some questions, I'm going to lead everyone through a contemplation. Um, and it's exactly what we're going to do. You're just going
Excellent.
to quickly move to a place where you allow releasing the uncontaining of
Yeah.
whatever needs to be uncontained to just happen spontaneously. We invite it up and we just don't touch it and we just allow it to leave and notice that it does.
All right, cool. Then I'll wait until you do the
Yeah,
guided.
good. Well, you could do it now while we're waiting. I mean, you've all earned it. You've all earned your stripes. There's nobody here who's just started releasing or meditating, whatever you do. This is probably not your first day, right?
Of course, I just don't understand how you can release the way you release. I
Oh
don't
my God, you'll
understand.
never understand it. That's the problem with the mind. The mind wants to understand things. Ignore the damn mind. Your mind feeds you so much, I'll use a technical term, bullshit. Our minds lie to us because they're trying to preserve themselves. Your mind can be a beautiful thing. I've often said the mind makes a terrible master, but a wonderful servant. Stop listening to your mind. It's conditioning, it's programming, it wants to understand everything. The reality of our being is infinite. It doesn't have edges or boundaries or beginnings and ends. It's infinite. The mind is finite. That which is finite cannot comprehend the infinite. It wants to try to turn it into a thing, an object. That's what minds do. But our being, our true nature is not an object. It's not a thing. It's who we are. It's the source of everything. It's the source of us. It's the existence of us. So when your mind's trying to figure it out, say, yeah, go sit down. I'll call you if I need you. I'll definitely let you know if I need you. Because your mind comes in handy. You want to go out for a ride and where did I put my keys? That's the mind being a good servant. You left them in the drawer. Thank you. But other than that, ignore it. Don't try to figure this out. Just be. It gets so easy. As soon as we start to figure it out, we're moving away from the stillness of being and we're back into the and then yeah. It's endless. It'll never be satisfied, your mind. So thank you for that, Shai. Anyone
Thank you.
else? Questions, comments, observations? How does this land for you? I mean, if you just want to share that, because
Um, Rick,
yes,
I don't want to give the mind a totally bad reputation, even though bad things are said about it. But isn't the mind also what leads you into releasing or whatever it is that you're doing at the moment?
I'm sorry, isn't the mind what?
Isn't the mind what leads us into releasing, to the
Yes,
desire to release, or
yes,
to whatever spiritual path you're on right now?
yes. So here's the thing about mind, because I've spent a lot of time trying to really understand that. My mind did. There's really, and again, just my observations, right? My own perspective. There's really no such thing as the mind. This is not a thing that exists anywhere. There certainly are thoughts that arise in us, right? And so there are thoughts that arise that are in service to the separate self, that are wanting to maintain us as a separate being and keep us in that story. There are thoughts that arise on behalf of beingness or consciousness to free us. So I agree with you completely, Helen. And the mind can be a beautiful instrument of service if it is seeking our freedom and awakening. And we're the ones that have to discern the difference. And we have to ask ourselves, sometimes I'll say to myself, something comes up. Is that in service to a separate self, or is that in service to awakening? And if you ask that, you'll see, because the knowing that we are can always discern the difference. But we have to be conscious and present. The thing about the mind, the conditioned thinking that arises, it's conditioned, it's stored, it's like a playback device. So it comes up. But yeah, the mind leads us to seeking freedom. But then that mind that led us to seeking freedom, also there's an aspect to it that really wants to survive. And so as we get to freedom, yeah, you're doing great, you're making progress, you're getting there. But for how many years, or in my case, I can say, for how many decades have I been making progress and getting there? And Lester used to ask a question that I loved and I hated all at the same time. He asked it to all of us. He'd walk into the retreats, or intensives, as we called them at the time, and I know many of you were there and you experienced it. And he would say, how long should it take an infinite being to realize they're infinite? So we know the real answer to that, but we also know that what we were doing was, and he'd also ask a question that you knew you were being set up, but you had to answer it. And it was usually at the beginning of an intensive. And he would say, how many of you, raise your hand if you really, truly want to be free? Hey, Lester, my hand's up. Put your hands down. You're all liars. Anybody remember him saying that? All liars. Yeah, because if you really wanted to be, you would be. And what he was saying was, Lester was just referring to the reality that we already are that. There's nothing to become. And reminding us that we always had the ability to choose that. But the reality for most of us, certainly for myself, was that we were so attached to this idea of who we are and the beliefs and the conditioning of the mind and all that, that it took a while, and there was a lot of peeling away of layers. But at some point, like I said, and I've been saying, we have to drop the peeling away of layers. We have to recognize that it's kind of, maybe I would call it the next stage of understanding, the next stage of our understanding. Like first, I am my feelings, I am my thoughts, this is me. And then we start releasing, we realize I'm not my thoughts and feelings. I have thoughts and feelings, but I'm not. There's a quiet part to me. But then at the next stage of understanding is, there's not really a me here. There's just something that appears to be a me, but upon close reflection, that's just all an appearance in this space of awareness that I am. And so as we peel away the layers, or let go of the seeming layers, our clarity, our vision gets clear. And we see that what I am is the unchanging awareness, the screen upon which all of this is projected. And that is the only thing that I could possibly be, because everything else comes and goes. And I, that I am, have never come and gone, nor could I. So, yeah.
So I really love what you're saying too, in that, when we're learning, releasing, or whatever other modality, and there's this of wanting to be infinite, but infinite means everything, and we are that. So infinite includes all things, even the mind and the ego body, which we get the idea we need to get rid of to be free, but it's within the all. And it's like you said, there's use for it, that what we are as an infinite being experiences and expresses through body, through mind, but we're not those things. It's like I'm not my finger, but my finger can dial a number on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that, so that there's no rejection or deciding that something's bad or wrong. And in my own experience, as we've all gone along and realizing that, like what you're saying about when we think we're this person, it's coming to see, as we keep letting it go, that there's just been like a created structure. Like if you've been in New York, there's scaffolding everywhere to keep rebuilding the sides of buildings that are falling down. And over time, there's been this creating of an idea of, who am I? Who should I be? Maybe I should be this. Maybe I should. Someone said I should. And it's all things that we've created that, like you were saying, it's confining. It's like a collapsing, because it's actually limiting the truth of who we are. But then we think okay, this is who I am. This is what I want to be.
Yeah.
And now I have to maintain that.
Yes.
And I have to defend it, and I have to justify it. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of energy. But then when we realize, no, like you said, no, I'm not any of that. Those were all ideas. Those were structures. Those were beliefs.
Yes.
But I am more than all of it.
Yes. And it's so beautiful. Thank you, Kathleen. It's like, this doesn't make sense to the mind because, like I said, the mind is finite. We are infinite, but it is true that we are none of that which appears. And it is equally true that we are all of that.
But that does make sense to the mind. My mind, I'm not at the super higher level, but my mind is aware that I am different things at different times, and I'm not always the same person, and that I have grown and I have changed, et cetera.
Beautiful.
Et cetera.
Yes. Perfect. Yes.
Right.
When the mind is informed with truth, then yes, that becomes very clear. When the mind, when you have the understanding that you shared, Helen, you can hear something like, I am none of that, and I am all of that. And you can you just get it, because it's not your mind getting it. It's you, the being, seeing truth, knowing truth. So yeah.
Yep. Rick,
Yes.
I thanks so much for this, and everybody for being here and supporting this wonderful, wonderful conversation. Yes, I've been very interested in Advaita for a while, and I also, the welcoming everything works for me much better than the let go. It seems that there's a step in the process I don't have to take when I just welcome, when I just accept. I don't have to go into, and it's like the Rumi poem, welcoming everything, the moods, the angry. And I also, in one of Lester's Thank Heaven for his talks on YouTube, but he talks about just being, just be. And also, we already are, but when we move into that awareness of being, which is what I feel is happening now in this discussion, just be. I think Lester even did a song, if you can be and be and be and be somewhere. I remember that. But just the sense of being, yes, it encompasses everything, Helen,
Yes,
but
it does.
it's not separate. And I found great relief in spending time in being.
That's it, Madeline. There is no process.
Yeah.
There's the appearance of a process. There's whatever,
Yeah.
but there is no process to just be. You can't not be.
Right.
You can't not be, because you are.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful, which, by the way, Madeline, thank you for that. I'm going to put everybody on mute. That is a perfect segue for me to kind of just share with you a little bit of a contemplation so we can all kind of experience that being. And we'll probably end the call right after that. So in Facebook, I know not everyone's on Facebook. That's where most of the community conversation will be. I'll be reaching out to everyone the next few days, probably by email, because I have everyone's email address that you needed to register for this call. So you'll be getting an email with, I'm going to be posting videos both on YouTube and in the Facebook group. And we'll kind of take it from there. And I'll be sharing some thoughts on you with where we go from here, ways to support it, how I will be working with all of you and what I do best. You know, for me, a lot of questions come in like what Shai asked and others asked. I'll probably do a bunch of short videos answering questions, and that way that conversation, and I'll even do some contemplations on video like this one, will be available. So people can tap into it over time, and hopefully there'll be content there that's valuable and relevant. And what keeps the content relevant is you asking questions. Share your wins. We can talk about that, your insights, your understanding, like Madeline just did and others have done, and Kathleen. And also your questions and what's not making sense. And that way we can make sure that what we're creating together has that relevance to it. So with that, I encourage you to close your eyes. It's just easier that way. And could you allow your current experience to be exactly as it is? Simply notice any thoughts, feelings, sensations, physical, emotional, doesn't matter. Notice them. Don't touch them. Don't do anything with them. Don't release them. Just let them be. And simply be aware. No resistance. Feel yourself as the open, empty, allowing space of awareness within which all experiences, thoughts, and feelings, sensations arise, move about in, and then resolve back into. Know yourself to be pure awareness, simply knowing, experiencing, nothing to do. And as you breathe in the light of a pure awareness. Just breathe in the light of awareness into every cell of your being, every fiber of your being and experience. Just breathe in that light of awareness. Feel everything as pure awareness without regard to any thoughts or memory or any activity of mind that likes to turn things into, give things names and give them form. Just feel everything as just as pure awareness, one unified experience. Maybe pieces of it are moving. Maybe there's energy back and forth. No thoughts. Don't refer to any thoughts or any memory. Just allow that raw experience of being to be what it is and move about as it's being, as it is being, and just remain as pure awareness. Empty yourself of everything that you know, everything that you are. Simply allow yourself to be empty. Allow becoming to rest in being. Allow movement to come to rest in stillness. Allow any noise to resolve into the silence, to be absorbed into the silence. Allow any sense of being a separate self to dissolve in the ocean of being that you are. This is you. This is your real being. You are that awareness. You are simply presence itself. And while you're maintaining that knowing, just allow yourself when you're ready to open your eyes. And everything that you see, everything that appears before you is all part of awareness. It's all made of awareness. It's not separate from you. Nothing is. As Kathleen so beautifully said, if the infinite is truly infinite, what could be apart from it? So I'd like you all, if you would, take a moment to go to the chat box. If there should be an icon at the bottom of your screen. If not, the chat box is on the right and you should be able to type right into it. If not, click on the more button on the right with 3 dots above it, and you should be able to open up the chat previews. What I'd love for you to share would be just a word or 2 or 3 to describe what you're feeling, to describe what your experience is. No sentences, no stories, just a word or 2. How beautiful to hear from all of you. Yeah, help me out here. If you look at what what you're experiencing, what others are experiencing, is this how we define freedom, awakening, our ultimate goal? Yes. So now when you hear or think, I already am that, you've had your own direct experience of it. This is not a state you achieved. This was just simply stopping, bringing attention, bringing awareness to become aware of itself. Awareness is always aware of objects and things and movement, but now awareness is aware of itself. And all you ever have to do is bring awareness back to itself again and again, over and over. And it becomes effortless. It becomes the natural state for you when you just focus on that. Focus on your feelings and stuff, and you'll be pursuing them forever. Focus on awareness, abide as awareness, in awareness. It's right there. It's always there. So what we're going to do now, since it's coming on the top of the hour, and those who need to leave, certainly feel free. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, we'll get this posted. We'll keep the conversation going in support of this recognition. And those who care to hang out and stay and continue the conversation, I will be here for about another 20 minutes or so, and I'm more than happy to do that. So whoever needs to go, thank you so much for being here, and whoever can stay, feel free to unmute your microphone if there's something you want to share.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That was so beautiful, and beautiful to be together in this. I had the sensation, Rick, kind of like waves on a beach, just waves coming up, and it was just a beautiful feeling. And that the mind and the noise of the mind, which did try to make an entrance, a lot, that it was just another sensation, that it was like hearing construction work outside my window or something. that was the noise of the mind, and I didn't have to pay attention to the construction workers hooting.
That's beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Madeline. See, this is part of why we're together, is for each to share our own seeing, because we're all seeing, and just to hear how it unfolded for you is so beautiful. So thank you. Yeah. Construction workers outside, let them do their thing. I'm not on the construction team. Thank you. So hammer away and I'll just ignore it. And the funny thing about the mind is, ultimately, when it's ignored, it just is fine. I'm not even going to talk to you anymore.
I had a picture as we were doing the meditation. I'm a science fiction fan, and there's a Star Trek that has a shapeshifter who dissolves into liquid to rest and rejuvenate, and then becomes form. And then I saw us all in dissolving into the ocean of infiniteness, and then that we can create form, and then we can dissolve back into, and we can create form, and we can dissolve back into.
So beautiful.
It was fun.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know. Some of these, I really believe some of the writers of some of these shows are truly awakened, like to recognize something like that. They see it. Yeah. That's beautiful. What occurred to me, Kathleen, as you were sharing that, the thought that arose for me was, don't take shape. We don't need to take shape. The mind loves to. That's what it does. It's just doing its job. I mean, I found one of the things that really helped quiet my mind a lot was having a beautiful conversation with it and acknowledging it. Like, it has served me so well most of the time in my life. But it's, it's been beautiful. So it's not about rejecting or negating mind. It's just letting it evolve upward and just be in service to who we are. And so when the old noise comes up, it's like, no thanks. Yeah.
Well, you start to feel and recognize, because you began the discussion about your own experience and how, now there's less and less of being connected and tangling up with the tribulation that happens, the ideas, the feelings, the thoughts, the wants, all of that thing. That as we connect into the awareness that we are, when we're connecting to what is separate from that, or a form we create, it actually feels very limiting and very confining.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
not as comfortable anymore. Before it was kind of comfortable because we knew it.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Yeah, I really believe and experience that awareness wants us fully to surrender to it, that the pull of grace is how I describe it sometimes, is very strong. We just have to stop fighting it. I know when I have at times felt feelings arising, okay, I don't really want to feel that. I have to release it or whatever, or there be some resistance to it. And then I realized, like, what's arising is a result of beingness wanting me to be completely free. And so it's serving something up, saying, this is what needs to go next. And the limited ego self would go, well, it's I can't let it go. It's me. It's important, whatever. But it would be that inherent resistance to it, or attachment to it, or working on it and all that. But as I realized that it was nothing more than beingness serving up, beingness clearing out what needed to be released, whatever contracted energy was in me that needed to be released. Beingness was saying, okay, I got it, man. Let me take this from you. And all I had to do was say, just be quiet and still, and go, okay, thank you. And it would just leave. Do that, practice that. We did some of that now in this little contemplation. Just be still and let it leave, and it'll leave. It wants to leave. It wants to be freed. So thank you for that, Kathleen.
This is wonderful. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing too, like what you just said. None of it is the enemy. It's just letting us know what's in the way,
Yeah.
so that we can allow that to get out of the way.
Yeah. I got to tell you, for a guy who spent a good part of his life pushing that boulder up the hill, this is so freaking refreshing. Like, what? I don't have to work at this anymore. I don't have to sit and do 1,000 mantras or whatever. I can just, like, not do anything. I don't have to even bother with things that are tough and tiresome, like blinking and other things, other activities. Like, you don't have to do anything. Just like, take me, I'm yours. And beingness, I also refer sometimes to beingness as God says, okay, I will. I am. I have. I got you. No more work, no more effort. Drop the effort, drop the work. Now, you may come across times when there has to be some effort and work because you're, like, really stuck. In those cases, do the work. You may be somewhere where you're just really jammed up and the only thing that seems to work for you is releasing. Release. Nothing wrong with any of it. Do what works for you in the moment, but just always know and go back to who you really are. And know that it can be really easy. And then the moments when it's not, then it's not. And so what? You do what you need to get to that clearing again, and then surrender back into it. And if you just keep that as your focus, it gets easier and easier and less effort. And then there's no effort. And then it just happens. So.
I got into a very high release state. And it lasted a while. And then I thought to myself, gee, this is good. But do I want to spend my whole life in this state? And I said, no. I don't mind. I like going into it every so often. And I thought, I could do it. I could spend my whole life in this kind of release state, in which case I would not be singing, I would not be writing things, I would not be doing a lot of stuff to do. I would just be in this state saying, why bother? Why care? Why it doesn't matter? And something in me said, I think I don't want to be in this state full time.
It's a beautiful observation. I have a question.
Yeah.
Why can't you be in that state and do your singing and do what you want and live your life the way you want to live it? Why does being in that, you call it a release state, I would call it, I mean, it's an accurate description, but I would just say in that state of awareness of your being, yes. Why not be there, live your life from that place? When we have this understanding, this seeing, go about and live your life however you want. That's not what matters. What matters is that you are doing it not from the place of a limited self trying to get something, but from the place of pure being. I think the greatest singers, the greatest performers, the greatest creators in this world are people who are very in touch with their own being and create and perform from that place of being.
Well, the reason would be that at the place that I was at, there was no need to do anything. And like, why do? Why not just go around like that?
And how did that feel? It felt wonderful and you didn't want to stay there, is what you said.
It felt wonderful, but I didn't want it full time. I wanted to do things.
Good.
What you're talking about is another state that when you perform, you get into, I call it a Zen state, whatever you want to call it. And you're just there in the moment in that. So yes, but it's not exactly the same as what I was in this time, which was why bother? I care. Just be.
Yeah. So the mind would tell us there's all these different states and places. It's just the mind saying that. It's just the mind wanting to pull us back in. Okay, this is beautiful. I don't want to stay there forever. So it's just, there's nothing mystical or magical about some amazing state that we get into, or, it's just simply the knowing of our own being. And abiding is that. And we can choose to do whatever we want to do in life. How many times have you heard Lester say, and every other master, be not the doer? What does that mean? It doesn't mean don't do anything. It means what you are doing, note that there is no separate being doing it, that the doing is happening through you. So you can do and be and engage in the world fully in whatever way you choose or not. There are those who are awakened to their own being who sit in caves and just radiate peace to the world. There are those who are recognizing their own being and very engaged in the world in some way, in whatever they're doing. So you can choose what needs to be done, but know that you're not the doer. So it's up to you, but be careful. Sometimes the mind can put us into these categories and states, and I was here, but I wasn't there. That's all mind stuff. It all takes us away from the knowing of our own being. So just know who you are, feel the peace and joy of your being, and then do nothing, do something, do what matters to you.
All right, that makes sense, Rick. Thank you.
Good. You're very welcome.
I also heard from one of the Advaita teachers that it becomes the background of your being. So even when you're out there and doing, this space is always there, you know? So you do from a place of freedom rather than exertion as the mind wants to push.
Thank you.
And Helen, I'm remembering, didn't I see on YouTube a long time ago, you and Ernie dancing?
Oh, really? With Ernie dancing? Well,
I remember you and Ernie in a YouTube video dancing or playing or being very fun.
oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful working with Ernie. We both enjoyed working together very much. But I wish I could see that video.
Oh
Me
gosh.
too. I'd love to see that video.
Yeah, maybe if you can find it on YouTube, you can share it with Helen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that. There's very little pictures I have of Ernie, very little. He
Yeah.
wasn't very much of a picture taker anymore.
Yeah, but you had a little segment on YouTube called I'm Glad I Knew You or something like that.
Maybe I'm happy that we met.
Oh, I'm happy that we met.
Yes, that's it.
Oh, that was my media program. Yes, but I don't. Did I do Ernie on that? Maybe I did do an Ernie thing.
Hmm.
If you find it, let me know.
Must be
Boy.
your signature song.
Yeah, if you find that, Madeline, maybe you can send it to Helen. What I wanted to ask, is there anyone else who would like to share or ask a question or just share an experience? Feel free. I want to give you a chance while we're all here. And Christian, it's good to see you. Adrian, I see you unmuted, but Christian, it's great to see you. I know you got here a little bit late, so the recording will be posted. You want to go through the whole call?
I got the time wrong, obviously.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, fine. My bad.
That's all right. It's all good. You'll have the recording. It'll be just like being here.
Okay.
Yeah, good. So, Adrian?
I wanted to comment that I read something recently I've been pondering, and that is the last thing to drop before awakening is the sense of I know.
Mm-hmm.
And the English language is a little bit interesting because maybe we don't have enough words, because you've been talking about knowingness, knowing, and that seems distinctly different from I know. I know seems to be from the mind.
Mm.
Like the eyes in that circumstance seems to be the mind.
Yes.
And knowingness, it's like there's knowing but no knower, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to share that that's what's been running through my mind as I listen to you and everyone today. It's been, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem with words. We do the best we can with words. They point to something, and what matters is that each one of us reflects back on what is that pointing to in me. Because I can mean, as you said, Adrian, two very different things. I, me, this limited being, I know this, I know that, I know so much, I learned so much, I read so much, blah, blah, blah. And that's the finite I, the seemingly separate self, I. So yeah, that needs to be dropped. But the I am that we are, the ultimate I am that we are, actually, if you just look at it, it exists before the words I am appear. There's nothing that we could call it that would be accurate. It has no name. It has no form. It has no edges or boundaries. And yet it is the most intimate experience that every one of us has all the time. It's just We might describe it as the sense of just being. Before anything, before you know anything, before you know yourself as perhaps as a limited self, before you know any of that, you know that you exist, that you are. It's the one unchanging element of everything.
Well, it's funny that the question, who am I, is a great one to contemplate. And that I, as you pointed out, is so different from the I that knows. But to ask the question, who is the I that knows, is also very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
To me, asking who is this I, the mind, and who is the I that is, still points you in the same direction, even though it seems to point
Yes.
away.
Yes.
It still brings you to what you truly are. It's beautiful.
Perfect.
Really
Perfect.
beautiful.
And what I love about what you're sharing, Adrian, I think it's so important for everyone to hear this, that we each need to find our own way. We're unique. We're unique individuals in a sense. And we need to find what works for us, what supports us. I found in my own work that at times I would listen to some different teachers and different teachings and different ways of expressing the truth. There is only one truth, and it's unspeakable. But we need to speak it if we are to share it and encourage and support ourselves and others. And so everyone has different ways of speaking it. And I even asked myself when I was giving a lot of thought, and those who know me well know that it's been some time that I've been thinking about coming back to getting engaged in with the releasing community again. And my question that I was asking myself is, what do I have to contribute really? Because there's so many wonderful teachers that are teaching such beautiful truths and so available today in the YouTube world. And then I just realized I don't have anything new to share. What I have to share is my journey and my perspective, and those for whom it resonates and supports, fabulous. And those who feel they're better served with some other channel or teaching, fabulous. It doesn't matter. There's nothing I want to get out of this group. It's just in my heart. I love to share and support because I do. And I've had so many wonderful, generous, loving, kind people in my world and my journey who've done that, and I've benefited from it. But I personally benefit tremendously from hearing truth expressed different ways at different times, because for me, it helps me bypass the mind. And that was one of the traps I fell into with releasing. And I love releasing. I never have nothing against releasing whatsoever. But for me, in my mind, the questions and the repetition, and it just became a thing. And anything that becomes a thing can be in the way, in my view of things. So find your way, see whatever resonates with you. That's the truth. You will be led if your desire, your genuine desire is to know your own being fully, completely, and abide there, then you will have that, and it will lead you to the places and people that you need and the teachings. We are in such a wonderful world of abundance of teachers and Advaita and others on YouTube and other places. It's just extraordinary what's available to us today. So before we sign off, anyone else want to share something?
I'd love to jump in and share.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hello, Josh.
Hey, Dad. Hello. Hi, everybody. It's so beautiful that we can just get together and have a conversation like this and an experience. It's a gift. I wanted to speak to you briefly about beingness taking over. In that a fundamental law of physics is that all physical things break down over time. Like a car will rust, metal will rust over time, our bodies will age. That's a fundamental law of physics. But as we get into the electromagnetic realm, or magnetic, outside the body, the energy body, it actually is opposite of that. It becomes more organized. So the body breaks down, that's entropy, called entropy. But negative entropy or reverse entropy happens as we get into the electromagnetic realm. So that is, to me, expanding back into the experience of beingness, how it becomes more ordered, the opposite of breaking down. on its own. It becomes more ordered. That's the magnetic pull in a basic scientific way, which I normally don't speak in terms of science, but it felt interesting to share that. That was an interesting discovery when I read that. Things will naturally become more ordered. So when we leave the body, and that's why I think there's all these stories of this natural sense of connection and expansion, of returning to that. But we don't have to wait to leave the body or to die to have that natural order be restored. I've been really playing with the embodiment of this, and because for releasing for a long time, I was having incredible lift and openness kind of up here, but it wasn't necessarily embodied. So just when you led us through that beautiful exercise, that guided experience, I could feel that most of me felt pretty good, but there was some holding in some areas of my body. And I just, by observing it, saw that that's just where thought, the activity of ego, as you said yesterday, not the entity, but the activity of ego was generating a sense of separation. And just observing it, it released on its own.
How beautiful.
Yeah, same thing up into the head, that released, and then the whole physicality, the experience of having a body was open, and joined the consciousness as the open experience. Anyway, the words are starting to contract.
No, that's beautiful, Josh. Thank you for sharing that. I think the felt sense of separation likes to hide out in the body or store itself in the body in some ways. So that's why when we breathe, what I like to describe as the light of awareness into what we call a body, that sense of having a body, we just have to allow to dissolve whatever's there. So that's really beautiful. But the other thing you shared about how as we surrender, as we let go, as we experience ourselves as that, that there's a new order that arises. And I noticed, and then I think it's common for people to notice that as we surrender more and more, we recognize that life is happening as it happens. We don't really control it or direct it much. We just kind of show up. So there's this wonderful surrender into what is. And at the same time, there's this beautiful sense of just feeling in control. Like whatever goes on, I'm fine. Like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can't control that, but it's all okay. And there is an order and there is a beauty to it. So yeah, that's really nice. Beautifully expressed. Thank you. Good. So I will say to be continued. As I shared, we'll get this posted. We'll continue the conversation. It's truly, truly a joy for us to reconnect, for me to be with all of you, to hear your stories, your insights, your understanding. And what just came to my mind is what Lester would share, and that is never believe in anything that limits you. So with that, it's been a joy, my friends. Take care. Thank you all for your love and support. And we will be together again soon in person, but in reality, we're never apart. Have a beautiful day. You can unmute. Everybody want to unmute?
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dad.
Gains, everybody.
Yeah. Thank
Nice
you
to
all.
see you all.
Thanks, Rick.
All
Bye,
gains.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace.
Thanks. Ciao.